Before we do the Torah study, I just want to, as I mentioned earlier, for those of you who have a prayer book, I thought it would be very appropriate since both Rabbi Norman and his wife Lynn have come down with the virus, the COVID virus, that we say a little Mishaberach prayer for their speedy recovery. And so if anyone has the prayer book,
Page 253.
okay, right, as long as we have it. Does somebody want to read it? Just read it, and we can read along with you. So don't race through it. Read slow enough so everybody can read with you. Just do the English.
Where is it?
In our prayer book, it starts with may the one who blessed our ancestors.
Do you all have the same beginning?
No.
Okay, do you want to read it? Sure. It's this, and then the English here.
Okay. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill, especially Rabbi and Lynn. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
Amen.
Amen. So what I would like to do is read the opening prayer for us. I hope we didn't scare the people up in Tempe last week.
Marty, is it okay if
But we'll
I do
see. We'll see what happens. I'm just going to read the
Marty,
English. Yes.
Is it okay if I do my quotation from Shakespeare?
Oh, sure. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Usually the quotation is from Shakespeare, and it is today. This is one of my favorite quotations. It's from Hamlet, and I've always loved it, but especially for those of us who are Star Trek fans, Patrick Stewart said it during one of the episodes, and he said, what Shakespeare wrote with irony, I say with conviction, and so do I. This most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave or hanging firmament, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire. What a piece of work is a man and a woman, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculties, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action how like an angel, in apprehension how like a god, the beauty of the world, the paragon of animals, and yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
And thank you, David.
May I introduce my friend? Her name on the screen says Gerald Stoops, but it's really Dorothy. So
Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, everybody.
Dorothy.
Welcome.
Hi, Dorothy.
Thank you.
Welcome. Rabbi Murray, I'm glad you're here. Pastor Bruce, I'm glad you're here. Just remember, if anyone wants to say a word, a comment, or ask a question, or read something that pertains to what we're going over, please be sure you unmute yourself if you've muted yourself. So just be careful with that. The other thing is we usually start our reading with a short prayer. I'll read it in English. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, You have sanctified us through your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves in things of Torah. And believe me, we have been busying ourselves. We get involved in many, many different discussions. We sort of are, if I remember, we're in the lineage, discussing the lineage of Esau. And does somebody remember where we left off? Was it Esau? Was it verse 6?
At least there. We could say verse 6.
Okay, we can start with verse 6. So, David, since you spoke up, yes, Joanne.
Well, before we start, I just have a question that has been bugging me all week. And we talked about bloodlines last week. And I'm wondering, is it considered Jewish bloodline if it's from Esau's bloodline? Is Ishmael also considered Jewish? It certainly doesn't say there, so I'm curious.
Okay, I will open that up for discussion.
And out with my chart.
Okay.
Historically, Rabbi Mary may have some information about this, but it depends on how you want to look at it. Yes, there is a series of
36.
generations that are discussed separately, if that's what you're getting after. But the two, the division could go back to both Abraham and Isaac, because the Ishmael and Esau branch off from our version. If you read the Quran, it would be that we branched off from them. Okay, so it is it is done that way. However, if you read the entire Pentateuch and go through a whole bunch of other books, okay, and Rabbi Mary may be able to answer this better than I. There are a lot of people from the surrounding area that are welcomed in to and add to the Jewish experience. They become the wives of so-and-so or thing like that. I'm thinking in terms of Ruth, I'm Zipporah. I'm thinking of, and there are others that have come from the surrounding areas and have had an influence on the Jewish experience. So any other comments?
Yeah, the important thing to remember is that the blood has to be red.
I love it.
It's good for oxygen. Good for oxygen. That's funny. Yes, Rabbi Miri.
Okay, this is a complicated, do I have my voice? Yeah. This is a complicated issue, the issue of bloodline and Jewish. When we say Jewish, is a very, very new terminology.
Mhm.
It's not something that we're finding in the Torah, in the 5 books. That's not there. Later on, that we start being called Jews on the name of Yehuda, that tribe that becomes the biggest one, and Benjamin, and that's where they have the temple, etc., etc. Now, the issue of who belongs to that line, Ishmael certainly is the son of Abraham, and Esau is the son of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and Jacob. So until that point, they are all cousins. But later on, And as I said, I'm not very good with dates, but we know that Islam is much, much later. And we know that Christianity is much, much later. Now, the general belief is, it's always who writes the book, the winners write the book. But we cannot, as Jews or as Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, we cannot say that Judaism disappeared when Christianity came along. It's not a line in which, okay, now we cut, and now this is what happens. No more Judaism, but now it's Christianity. Or no more Judaism, and now it's Islam. It didn't work that way. The way that it worked is that each one of them branched into a different type of what we call now religion. Judaism in the Torah, I checked this just before we finished last time. The word religion in Hebrew today is dat, daled kaf, dat. But when you look, the meaning of dat is strength, it's power, it's not religion. So for Judaism, it's not that we were a Jewish religion, but we're talking about people. Now, that's why the Quran includes the stories of Abraham, of the creation of the world, Abraham, Isaac, etc., etc. Christianity also have the Hebrew book, and pay attention that people that pay attention to words don't call the Hebrew, the Torah, the Old Testament.
Right.
Because we don't believe that there is an Old Testament and a New Testament. This is our testament. Now, when Christianity came, and it came from, but it moved into a different branch. The same with Muslim. When Muhammad comes and the Quran is written, yes, it comes from here, but it moves into another direction. And it's true, as you say, Marty, that many people join either the Muslim or the Christianity or the Judaism. Now, and we know about Jews, they build two synagogues, the one that they go and the one that they don't go. So the same happens across history, in which in Judaism, they split. Today, you would say Orthodox and Reform, that we behave in different ways. We still are Jews, although for the ultra-Orthodox, I want to tell you that none of us is a Jew. And so the issue of branches don't mean that it's the same. It's just from here, it moved to a different way. So people say, like my daughter-in-law, she says, well, Christianity and Judaism is the same because Christ was Jewish. Yes, let's say that Christ was Jewish, but then come the disciples and we move into a different behavior. We cannot say that Christianity is Judaism. In our tradition, we don't have the Son of God. We don't worship a person. So yes, it's the same source, but move into the other direction. And Joanna, I don't know if I answer your question. I even forgot it now. But the issue of who we are and what the other religions are. Bruce, I would like to hear from you very, very much your comment on those things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, go, Joanne.
Your explanation is excellent, but I think I need to have a lunch with you when we can ever do that sort of thing, and you can actually do it on pencil and paper for me. I understood, but I didn't quite, but thank you for the explanation. I was so curious when it bothered me all week. Trying to work it out.
Okay.
So thank you.
And Ricky might have in her chart something that points in that direction. I don't know if she has only who comes after whom or the entire communities that were from then. But Bruce, I think it's your place now to help us out.
Well, thank you for allowing me to do this. 90% of what we would call the entire scripture, and I try very hard to say covenants, because I think that's an important word versus old and new. I try to say covenants. But the 90% of all of what we would consider the Christian Bible is written by Jewish people. 90%. Only Luke and Acts are by a Gentile person who became a believer in Yeshua as Messiah. And so you have that. I just want, maybe some people, maybe this is all new information for some of you, I don't know. But that's the truth of the where all those people were Jewish people. The one thing that I feel very strongly about, and again, I'm only in my bloodline DNA, I'm only 2% Ashkenazi Jewish, but I still have that in some way, shape, or form. And of course, before I even knew that, I was strongly called to examine the roots of my faith. I've been doing this for 20 some years now, of really examining the Torah and really examining everything that has to do with what came 2,000 or so years ago. So I have done a lot of research. One of my best verses to explain the Christian roots into Judaism, it was written by Rabbi Saul or Paul, and he said that we as believers in Yeshua Mashiach are grafted into the rich olive tree of Israel. That's the words he uses, and that's how I feel very strongly, which is why I'm even here on this call, because I believe strongly in that rich root and how important it is. And so that's why I'm here. And I hope that in itself gives you at least my way of looking at Torah, looking at everything in the entire, what I would call Christian Bible, as being written 90% by Jewish people, really looking at all of these things very carefully, studying them, making sure that I understand everything there is to understand. I'm still learning. We all should still be learning something, I hope, every day. If we're students, I consider myself a student at all times. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, Gail, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, a couple of comments quickly. First of all, thank you for acknowledging this difference between Old and New Testament. That just really is obnoxious that when people do that. So I appreciate you commenting on that, Bruce and Mary. That's not the way to refer to the Testaments. The other thing is, the one thing you left out, Mary, is that suddenly in the middle of all this business about bloodlines, it suddenly became necessary that your mother be Jewish, not your father. Right. So there's that in the mix too.
Okay, Don had his hand up, and then Michael, and then Suzanne.
I've had my hand.
And Ricky.
Then I'm after Ricky.
Oh, okay. Well, wait a minute. Everybody has their hand up. Help me out. I know Don had his hand up earlier, and then Michael, but Larry has his hand up, and I thought I saw another one that popped up.
Ricky's been a long time.
Okay. Let Don, since he had raised the question first, let him answer. Then I'll go to Ricky and Michael, then Ricky, and try to remember your place. There's too many hands at one time.
And you shift constantly.
Yeah. Okay. So Don, you have the floor.
Well, thank you.
well, in between Saturdays, I spend hours researching what we're talking about. And this past week, I've been digging pretty deep, trying to understand the meaning of bloodlines and also get myself better educated on when the books were written. Because even though Christians make a distinction between the Old and New Testament, both were written many years, hundreds of years in some cases, after the reported events. And so nobody really knows for sure. And there's so many different versions, like in the New Testament, they have their lists of books included in what we call the Pentateuch vary quite a bit. I mean, there's other books involved, and then there's the books of Jubilee, for example. There's many different accounts and inclusions and exclusions, all a result of years of trying to canonize the Bible and fix it. And so what we are studying now is the result of centuries of redactions and editing. So I don't think anybody really knows what the truth is of what the Bible recounts. But it really came down, the bottom line for me is that the importance of bloodlines in the Bible is just to impart a sense of destiny. Because without the bloodlines, I always remember this quote from Arnold Toynbee about, he said, European history is just one damn thing after another. And that's the risk of any history when there's no destiny to follow. And so all through the Tanakh, there is a sense of destiny. I think that's what gives us its drama, which otherwise we wouldn't even be interested. It'd be one damn thing after another. So anyway, I'll just shut up now for the rest of the session. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to let Michael talk and
Ricky.
and then Ricky.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Marty. I want to ask my very good friend, Pastor Bruce, a question. And I don't mean to make it a difficult question, but Pastor, you brought up when you were speaking about learning every day, which I certainly subscribe to. And I wanted to ask you this question. You attend the Torah study, and you're in synagogue high holidays many times. And at this point in your life, do you think, as far as learning goes, are you learning more or getting more out of Christianity or Judaism?
More? That's an interesting question, Michael. I would say, Michael, that I learn by reading, I learn by hearing, and to me, the Word of God is what helps me in my faith, and it's all inclusive. I look at Torah, Tanakh, and what I call Brit Hadasha, to help me in my faith to walk the way that God would want me to walk. And so to me, it's not exclusive that it's more by this or more by that. It's all inclusive that I'm learning through a book that I consider to be holy. And I try to mimic my walk to be what I feel like this is telling me to do. Does that make sense?
No.
No?
A little, no, but that's okay. That's okay. That's all right. I appreciate
Okay. it's not a more or better than or other than. It's all inclusive for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thank you, Bruce.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Suzanne. Oh, no, Ricky, then Suzanne. Okay.
Okay, actually, that last thing that Bruce said, my favorite passage in all the books, and I've read them all, is Micah 6:8. Do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And to me, that last sentence encompasses all the commandments. As long as I walk humbly with my God. But the reason I had my hand up before, to go back with, where did Joanne go? Well,
Okay. I'm listening.
you're right. These pictures all move around. As I said, I've read so many things. And frequently I have taken books written for the children of the religion. For example, I couldn't understand the Mormon, book. And they don't have multiple translations. So I got a book on the children's stories of the Mormon book. I did the same thing, and I'm going to say the name of the book, Herbert's, Hurbut, something like that, Hulbert, Herbert's Stories. It was a composite book of Sunday school lessons. And it was the first time that I really felt the flow, and I'm using that word purposely, the flow from the Tanakh and what we know of as the Bible to the newer Bible, what you call the Bible, that the story of the Jews and how they migrated and some became Christian. So it was just an interesting thing. And then when we a lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls, I also felt that link that from Judaism, so many things in the Dead Sea Scrolls kind of look back and look forward. And so that's another bridge. So, but the easier bridge, the scrolls are not easy to read, but the easier one was this book for children's Sunday school classes. And it's Hurlbut, and I have the book somewhere. So Joanne, I know you have my email. If you text me and remind me, I'll give you the name of that book when I get it off the shelf.
Ricky, what do you mean they go forward and back? You said they go forward and they go back. What do you mean?
The flow. I mean, if you were to take just the Dead Sea Scrolls, some of the things in the Dead Sea Scrolls were absolutely purely Jewish, as we knew it up to that point. But there were other things in there that I could see later in what Christians refer to as the New Testament. One simple example is where to sit at the table. Don't sit at the head of the table, sit yourself low in the hierarchy and you might be invited up. And that was, I'd never heard that in Judaism, in the old, in the Tanakh, but it is in the New Testament, the Christian Bible. So that was an example of where the scrolls, the rules that the Essenes had were very much pointing toward the rules that the Christians later adopted. That's what I meant about looking forward. The looking backward is clear that they came out of the Jewish.
Okay. Larry has had his hand up for a very long time. And Suzanne, I will get to you, but I'm going to recognize Larry first. Grace has had her hand up. I saw that wave. And so let Larry speak and then Suzanne.
Okay, thank you. Apropos to this conversation is almost a full-page article in this morning's New York Times about Israel's leading ultra-Orthodox rabbi, Rabbi Kanievsky. He is referred to as Prince of Torah. He believes the Torah sustains the world. Without Torah learning, we don't have any reason to live. It's written in the Bible. If you stop learning, the world will collapse. And following up on Bruce's comment about importance of learning.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Suzanne.
Interestingly enough, when I first started going to a Bible study, I asked this question: when did the Jewish people become the Jewish people? And nobody could answer me. And but since that time, I think that the answer is through Jacob, because God renamed Jacob Israel, and it was Jacob's line that became the ones who were in Egypt, and then Moses, led them out, and they went through the desert, and it was Jacob's sons that became the 12 tribes of Israel. So as far as the other descendants from Abraham, like Ishmael and Jacob's brother Esau, I look at them as cousins.
Yeah.
Put it in our terms, but I do not consider them to be the Jewish people. I believe God signaled the Jewish people started with Jacob, and I Ricky, I don't. Where does it say about the sitting at the table? And what did you say? They move up? Or I never heard of that.
I don't remember where, but
Maybe Pastor Bruce can shed
yeah,
some.
I can just don't go move to the high place. Wait, take a lower and be invited to the higher place. Oh, Bruce may have the answer.
Let Pastor Bruce respond.
I'm not sure about where that shows up in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Essenes, although I'm sure it probably does through this. They were called the Sons of Light at that particular time. But within the writings of the gospel writers, it's very clear that when someone invites you to the banquet, that you then sit at a place of not being in honor,
Right.
so that if indeed you are by the host or hostess, then you can be receiving an honor by having them move you to a place of the right hand, or the right or left, or whatever. There's places of honor at a table that are designated from way back when, a long time ago. I don't know if we ever follow that anymore today, but that's, I think, what you were talking about, Ricky, is that you sit, when you come to a party, when you come to a place, if you're not told where to sit at a place that's not the honorable place, and maybe the host or hostess will invite you to a more honorable place. And I believe that's what you meant.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
In the book of rules of the Essenes.
Now, Grace had her hand up before, and for a while I thought it was Gail's hand, but it's the cat's tail.
Davy was before. Davy.
Grace, did you have your hand up before?
Yeah, I've had it up for a little while. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I became more interested in Judaism as I began to look at my family history, and come to find out that my great-grandfather and my grandfather were both Jews. My mother was born just prior to the Holocaust, and they had migrated. So here's what happened. My great-grandfather married a Norwegian princess, right? And she was renowned. Most what we've heard, I don't know how true any of this is, because my family's a little cattywampus, to say the least. I love them and I appreciate them. However, this Jewish princess, not Jewish prince, excuse me, the Norwegian princess, my mother doesn't have much Norwegian blood. So they did some kind of blood test. And my nephew has a Jewish bloodline. So I don't know where I belong in all of that, other than I was born with red curly hair. My first vaccine, my hair all fell out and it came back in platinum blonde. And I was the replica of that tow-headed, blonde-haired, straight-haired Norwegian.
Wow.
So I'm very curious about, Jewish study and the Torah, and I've been studying, and I want to piggyback a little bit on what Ricky said, that when I bought my Torah, I also ended up at the library, and they had a book sale going on there, and I bought a children's Jewish storytelling book.
Right.
Beautiful, great way for me to learn. And I wanted to give it to the kids, but I decided, no, we'll just do Zoom and I'll read it to them because I don't want to give it away. I'm selfish like that. But anyway, I just wanted to add that into my lineage. And thank you all for letting me share.
Thanks, Grace.
I thank you all for sharing, and these are very interesting discussions and bits of information.
David,
Yes, Chris.
David, did you want to say something? David?
Who?
Mr. Levy?
No, I never had my hand up. I just
Okay.
listening.
Oh, I saw it like
Chris,
that.
Chris does.
Sorry.
Chris has had her hand up now. Chris, you're muted. Chris, you're muted, so we can't hear you.
Now she's muted.
You just muted yourself. Try again. Okay, speak up. We can't hear you.
Her microphone, something's wrong with her microphone.
Your microphone is turned off.
Chris, send us a chat.
Saying goodbye.
Okay, whatever you can do, Chris, maybe sign off and then sign on again.
Okay.
Can't hear. Okay. Rabbi Mary, did you have your hand up?
The questions that you're asking they're really complicated.
Yes.
And it's difficult for me to say this. I've said this for many years, and just take it or leave it. Now, the Torah story, the 5 books of Moses. The problem that we are having at this time is that we are great believers in science. We have to do it these days. But we are great believers in science, that if we have a proof, then it's that. The same thing we do with history. If we dig, and we find archaeological stuff, then we know blah, blah, blah. Now, the fact of the matter is that for the Torah, until they get into Canaan, there's no proof that they walked 40 years, that they got the Torah in Sinai. There's no archaeological basis to that. So then we have to say, okay, so what's the Torah? I mean, and I think that Ricky and Bruce very concentratedly said what it is. It's a book. Torah means to learn. We are learning, and we are learning how to do all kinds of things. So what you call, Bruce, walking with God or being nice to your neighbor. So,
Whoops.
What happened?
Somebody,
what happened there?
who shared that screen?
Did
Who's,
I do something?
Yeah,
yeah, well, wait a minute.
wait a second.
Just,
Chris is trying to sign back in.
Trying to get back.
oh,
Did I do something?
yeah.
Yeah, you
can
shared your
You
screen.
tried to share your screen.
Oh, how do I get out of that?
Sometimes there's
How do I
red.
get out again? Let me get out. Let me get out. Oh dear.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay,
Big
right.
Brother got it.
All right, thank you.
okay, and Chris is here.
And Chris is
Okay.
back. Good.
Thank you. It's still my turn? Or
I
some-
don't know.
No,
Rabbi
Rabbi
Mary
Mary
was speaking for a
Okay.
second, and then we'll go to you, and then
All
we'll see what we can do about moving on.
We haven't even started.
I know. Go ahead,
Well,
Chris.
what I think
Mary.
is that happened is that Zoom is trying to sell me something, and they intervene to sell me that again. It's an improvement on Zoom or whatever. Okay, so that's a piece. And last time or 2 times ago, I used the word mythology. This is the story of how we came to be. How we came to be as tribes that we became, and we became tribes, and we went into Canaan, and we killed everyone that was there because we didn't like them and we didn't like their gods, etc. And from that moment, that's the book of Joshua. And I don't know how many of you know it. That's the second book of the 5 that comes after the 5 books of Moses. And from that point, we have archaeological stories. For example, in Christianity, we know that the Romans were at that point in Jerusalem, and they were killing the Christians. And we know that story. We know that at that point, we have a group of people that, yes, they came from Judaism, but they move into issues. They keep that, but they move into issues that are not very in the Jewish Testament. The other thing is that you need to understand that the book that it's really only Jewish, the only Jewish book, not the Torah, is the Talmud.
Talmud.
No one else uses the Talmud. Am I right, Bruce?
No.
I don't
the
think anyone else does.
Exactly. And when Napoleon came, that's what he burned, because he knew that's what the Jewish did. And so in the Talmud, Ricky, we have all these instructions, like I'll give you, which Orthodox Jews still keep, is that they are not allowed, when they pray or when they not pray, to listen the voice of women, because that calls them to, I won't say the word erection, but they call them being excited sexually. And that's why the women are upstairs, and that's why all kinds of things. And that's Talmud. And Talmud evolved because we are not doing that. Reform Jews, this group of people, does not believe that women should be separated. And we are really Jews. So we have all kinds of branches now that go. But until Joshua's book of coming into the country, to Canaan, and conquering Jericho, we know about Jericho. Until that moment is our story, guys. It's like every other religion created stories about creation, and about mitzvot, commandments. I mentioned to you that Hammurabi at that time had a lot of rules and commandments just like us, but we put them in our story. The Torah is our story. And that's how the Jews became to be Jews, because we are from the tribe of Judah, that the temple was built in Jerusalem that belonged to Benjamin and Judah. And from there, we're going into real history. And now I finished. Chris, it's your place.
Okay.
There was a
Chris,
lot.
Chris and then David.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. I just listening to all this wonderful stories and true realities of our faith. And I'm just can't go back to the point where they are leaving Egypt, Mitzrayim. They are living as people as a whole. And Moses is leading the people out of Egypt. And the night where all of this is happening, there is some Egyptians who are attaching themselves to the people, who are realizing that they are the chosen ones, that they are God's people, and they come out of Egypt with the Hebrews. And I can't help to think that how wonderful God is to make an allowance for anyone who chooses, desires in the heart to attach themselves to the people of God, just the same as Ruth and Naomi did in the time of Moab. It's just incredible that God will open the door for anyone who wants to be his follower. And I think that's the beauty of our faith, that we are not really just making ourselves the chosen people, but that in fact, we do have an opportunity to share this with anybody else's. That was my comment.
Good point, Chris. Yes, David, and then okay, then Ricky.
Yeah, more important than David is Wendy.
Oh,
I just have two very, very short comments. Rabbi Miri, thank you so much. I have been to Orthodox shuls, and I have felt like I was up in a cattle car with all the women, and now I know why. So that clears up a lot. That was very good. And the second point is, and I have to go back to last week, and this is really a point of information. So Michael, I don't want to say that you got something wrong with the keys in Jewish music. And a minor key is a sad key, but there are really three different keys. There's major, which is the happiest, minor, which is sad, and diminished is what Jewish and country Western music are usually written in. And that's much sadder than the minor key. And that's what makes it so beautiful, actually. And I think the Russian theme is also diminished. So.
Okay, thanks, Wendy.
fascinating. Okay, Ricky.
This is a real fast comment on what Chris said, that that we welcome. Well, we haven't dedicated the new memorial board, but the saying I put on the bottom was that it's dedicated to Klal Israel, who welcomes the stranger. Because to me, that also is a very important thing about the Jewish faith. We don't make it easy for people to become Jews. I mean, they got to get plunked, and they got to talk to the rabbi for a year, even though I knew as much as the rabbi did, I think, at times. But the welcoming the stranger is another, and Chris brought that up. So I just wanted to highlight that that's what's on the memorial board in the sanctuary right now.
That's in the Torah. The Torah includes commandments.
That's right.
The Torah is our teaching, learning book. Right. In Hebrew, the word teaching and learning is the same root. So Torah it's beyond learning. It's showing you the way, Yoreh. That's showing you the way to go. And that's the commandments. And on top of that, there are stories. There are midrashim. You know, many people believe in the story of Abraham working for from his uncle, and the uncle said, and the uncle has all these clay little things that are gods. He said, this is the god of this, and this is the god of rain, and this is, and one day he says to Abraham, can you please take care of my shop, because I need to go somewhere. So Abraham said, this is ridiculous. You cannot say that this is this and this is that. And he breaks all those. So here we say, you see, Abraham knew that this is not real God. Well, guys, this is a midrash. This is a story. It's not in the Bible anywhere.
That's right.
So we have those stories that were added before the what's my word? Before this sealing the, what's sealing the book? There is another word for sealing.
Tablet?
I'll remember.
Not sure
what.
Scrolls? Scrolls?
No. When well, I'll let you know.
Is it deicide?
No,
It's
no,
the
no.
sealing of the book. After that, you cannot add anything. That's it.
Oh, sealing it.
Sealing.
Sealing, she means.
Conclusion. Come on, Gail, help me.
It's the conclusion.
No, she wants another word.
It's sealing, it's closing it. It starts with a C and an O.
Culmination or what? Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Conclusion. Conclusion.
Conclusion.
No.
Well, we'll come back.
Conclusion, and it is the same.
Culmination.
Confusion.
Okay, we'll let Mary think. We'll give Mary a chance to figure it out. Let's go on to Ricky and then Michael.
I'm going to pick up on what Mary said about this being mythology, this being a story. If you look at the stories of the founding of any group of people, there's a lot about that culture in their founding stories. I mean, Rome was, two wolves.
Right.
The German, these Teutonic gods. And we got Abraham, and I slept from who
Yes.
he's a nice guy. So the very different culture comes out, or our mythology, our creation stories tell us a lot about the civilization that those stories represent.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you. Michael, you had your hand up.
He's muted.
Michael.
You're muted.
Michael, you're muted.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I couldn't help, but I think it was Joanne that mentioned the diminished key in music. Somebody was talking.
No, it was Wendy.
It was Wendy.
It was Wendy.
Wendy. Okay. So I just have to mention this. There's the happy key and a sad key, and which is the minor and the major and the diminished. But also thrown in there is a word called morbid, and it depends on the music, and I have to take a look at certain things. When I was doing my work in California, I started to put together a transcript on music, and so there was people that really loved what I had to say, and then there were people that wanted to hit me, actually wanted to really strike me because they didn't like what I was saying. And it was an opinion, and it struck a chord, pardon the expression, because I talked to a lot of different people, and instrumentation because music is my profession. And so I just wanted to throw that in as something to think about. And maybe we can talk about that sometime in the future. But thank you, Marty. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, everyone. Anyone else have something to say? I just wanted to remind you all that this has been a passage that you don't hear much about. A lot of the commentaries skip over in Judaism, skip over this passage, and also this passage about Esau. There have been debates in the literature that part of it is it added that was not written at a particular point in time, that information was added. Names and sexes of individuals are different in different portions. And this passage has been used to discredit Judaism because it's the weakest passage in Torah. Because of all of the discrepancies, but if we take it as a passage that was included, that it would, and the important word is included, to point out differences between the lines from Esau and the line from Isaac, and what becomes of them. It is our story, but still a recognition that those other people still existed and came from the lines from Abraham and Isaac, and the influence they have played on subsequent stories in Judaism. The Torah is our story, as Rabbi Miri has really pointed out for us. It is very, very important. It is our story, how we came to be. Whether it is mythology, whether it is well-founded in archaeology, it doesn't matter. It is still our spiritual story. And I think that's the important aspect here. That is our spiritual story and how we came to be. And all the problems that we encounter are lessons to learn from. And remember, I've said also, sometimes we think a decision we make is good, but it can also turn out to be bad in subsequent generations. And likewise, something that is bad can turn out to be good in subsequent generations. These are the lessons to be learned in Torah, not to take it verbatim, because then you fall into the pitfalls that we easily fall into, especially when we want to try to convince others that this is the one way and only way to view the scripture of Torah. And so this is a pitfall. And the reason I think we should still talk about the people, they wouldn't be important if they weren't in Torah. When someone's name is mentioned in Torah, there has to be a reason for it. And we shouldn't forget that. Okay, now some of the oral stories have been forgotten, and we do not know all of the references and by the way, this is not atypical in every religion. The more modern religions have a better documentation because it was written. Okay, and just like in the game telephone, okay, certain things can be forgotten that are still important. Our efforts are to try to figure out why they were there, why these names are mentioned, and why was it important to mention them. Okay, and I think that we need to change our focus just a little bit. Every one of the religions of the world are important. They contribute to the entire human experience. What we're trying to do is explore our story in depth, because that makes up the major portion of our, we call it our Jewish experience, but that is part of the human experience. And we have a better understanding. And I think everyone, by their contributions, sometimes I wish we had somebody who could speak to the Islamic side in this, because it becomes important. And it was brought up, the Mormon position on this. It becomes very important to see how all of these are interrelated.
Mhm.
Because when it all comes down to it, we're discussing each one of the parts that make up the whole.
Right.
And if we remember that, I think we will be a better human being in the world.
One
Yes,
sentence.
Ricky.
One sentence. I don't know who I'm quoting, but the deeper you get into the esoteric parts of all of the world's religions, the more they look the same.
Yes, good point.
Esoteric, the dogma, the rituals, that all is different. But the underneath esoteric part of all religions start to look very the same.
Yeah,
Very good
Yeah.
point. Yes.
I agree with you.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Chris,
And the
I don't know if that would.
rituals- Yeah, the
Yes.
rituals are different.
Right.
The rituals that
Right.
culture
Yes.
established, the
Rituals, dogma,
yeah.
the stories are different.
You see the same thing in Christianity. You see the same thing in Islam. There are different interpretations, but it's still Islam. It's still Christianity. It's still Judaism. Even though there are different branches that have different ways of thinking about the same events.
Even Rumi and Krishnamurti
Okay.
is the same.
Okay, Chris, you're muted. Chris, there you go.
The only thing I was doing is they all lead you to God. That's what I was saying with my finger up.
Yes.
God, that's it. That's the bottom line. Mhm.
Okay. Again, I missed Ricky, your friend's first name.
Her name is Dorothy.
Dorothy.
Dorothy, you're on.
Oh, thank you. I have a very quick comment. I am Catholic, but I'm a therapist, and I was treating a patient who was from the Middle East. And on my way to work, I fell and I broke my arm. So I had my husband call my patients to say, she won't be in today. And this man from the Middle East, Islam, he said to my husband, what hospital is she in? And, my husband didn't know him. And he said, well, I really can't give you that information. He said, it's really important. I have to know where she is. And my husband said something to me. I said, no, don't tell him. He said, well, at least tell me where I can reach her at home. So what he wanted, I thought, what is it that he's missing, that he needs from me? What he wanted was, through his religion, it was very important, because I was good to him, that he should bring me something. He should bring me food or something to help me. And I thought, how beautiful. And he was the only patient that day, and I had 8 patients, that was actually wanting to say thank you. And now I would like to return the favor and be kind to you. That's all I have to say.
But what you said was, nevertheless,
Yes.
That's on your shirt. Nevertheless, it was very important
Yes.
to be stated. And I think that that's what it comes down to. Do you remember the discussions we used to have about the Mobius strip?
Mobius.
Yeah.
We pronounced it Mobius, but it's really an OE in his name. So it's Mobius. We're all dots along that line that wraps around with no beginning and no end on the Mobius strip. But if we just take the time to look to one side or the other, we see a tremendous line of people with ideas, religions with ideas, and they're all part of the same experience, trying to figure out what is this all about. And sharing is the most important aspect of that. Yes, Larry.
All of the world's religions teach brotherhood, peace,
Yes.
but yet historically there have been more wars fought over religion, crusades, and I always have had trouble trying to put together these different concepts. Why? Because there are different religions, is there a feeling, well, my religion is better than yours, and I have to try and impose my views, even though it goes against all the basic principles?
Oh, raise your hand. Okay, first Michael, then Sue, then because this opened up another group of questions. Michael, you're muted.
Yeah, Larry. All religions are good and decent. Every one of them. There's not one that isn't. It's the few people in a religion, just the few in the religion, that will unfortunately paint the religion bad. It's just that way. But for example, the Muslim religion, the majority of Muslims are peaceful people. It's just a handful that unfortunately destroys terribly the whole religion. Just a few people. And that's the way it is with all religions. These people want to just be safe. They want to pray and be happy and go on their way. And it's just a few of them that destroy the whole thing.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I forgot who had their hand up for. Oh, Sue.
I in answer to your question, which is always pressing on people's minds, I think it is not the religion itself that makes war on anybody. It is the politicizing of the religion. Some men's nature is to seek power and to use it. And if they can add religion into the mix, it sometimes is very persuasive to the masses. But I don't think one can fault any religion for war. It is the politicizing of it that distorts it and makes it into something it is not. And that has been a plague upon mankind.
Very good, Sue. Very good. You did a good job on that. Yes, Joanne, your hand has been up for a while.
I like what Sue said, but you were looking for a word of the lineage line and also the Judaism line through time. And in Australia, the Aborigines call that dream time.
Yes.
And I just think that someone was looking for a word, and I just like that, dream time. In other words, as we come, that's how our religion is sometimes, the dream time.
One of the things that I would like to add to that, if I may, and then I think Ricky had her hand up too, you struck a note in me, and that is time from the standpoint of religion, and the time is from the standpoint of quantum physics.
That's where I was going.
Oh, okay, Ricky, I will see you go first.
one more of my quotes, and I know you've heard me say it. When the seers, sages, and scientists get to the top of the mountain, they will say it is one. And I love that it's seers, sages, and scientists. It's all, it's not just religion. It
Right.
is all one.
And it has been stated, I'm going to footnote with Ricky, that that when you get down to Planck time or Planck space, that's the smallest thing we can imagine at the center of every subatomic particle. There is no past, present, or future. There is no time. Okay? And we have heard that in different explanations in religion. When we are going in Exodus, those who are Orthodox talk about that all people, past, present, and future, receive Torah that day. So when we talk about it, we have it's just very interesting that time stands still when we discuss Torah. We have to include the past and the present in order to, we need 2 points. Those of you who are in mathematics, 2 points determine the line. And whether it's curved or straight, usually a straight line, that's the definition of a straight line. And that's going to give you the direction towards the future.
And in the Kabbalah, the nothingness is the Ein Sof.
Yes, you got it, Ricky. That is correct. That's another interpretation. That's correct. Yes, Rabbi Mary.
There is a phrase that we say, and is Ein mukdam o meuchar batorah. There is no mukdam, early or late in the Torah, meaning that there is no order. Because if we ask the question, hey, wait a minute, this we had before, this doesn't make sense because this was here. And if I explain the Torah like Rashi in those days, they're going to take from other books, from Psalms, from Ruth, from all kinds of places to explain something in Genesis. Because there is no, and the word Ein Sof is a wonderful, wonderful word that we say Adon Olam, Beli Reshit, Beli Tachlit. There is no beginning and there is no end. How can you express anything without beginning or end? If I talk about a book, the book starts here and ends here. If it doesn't start anywhere, and that's godliness, that there is no boundaries. It's Ein Sof.
Very good, very good. Thank you, both Ricky and Rabbi Mary. So I think that it is important to look at all of this as being as inclusive as we possibly can get as we go through these different names. And I do have the resource to help guide us through this. But in years past, this has often been overlooked. And usually in other groups doing Torah study, they race through this. As I said, we're not going to. It's going to challenge us in many different ways. And keep that in mind as we go through this. Any other comments that yes, Joanne?
Someone mentioned Jericho. And I'm thinking about this timeline, et cetera, dream times. And somewhere in the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, where someplace I know is about the city of Jericho and how the army went round and round. And there's a song that says, and the walls came tumbling down. I've been in Jericho like the week almost, they discovered Jericho is said to be at least 11,000 years old. But
Whoops.
Joanne, for some reason you froze, everything froze on your screen and we can't hear you. So what we will do is once you can get that fixed, I have no idea how to fix it. But once you do, we will come back to you. Okay, I don't, because you just froze on the screen and with everything.
Yeah.
So what if I may, could we read on in the time remaining, just read on a little bit. If somebody would like to read verse, David, thank you. And if you would read from verse 6, we're on Genesis 36.
This is 36, verse 6.
Verse 6.
And Esau took his wives and his sons and his daughters and all the souls of his house and his cattle and all his beasts and all his possessions, which he had gathered in the land of Canaan, and went into a land away from his brother Jacob, for their substance was too great for them to dwell together. And the land of their sojournings could not bear them because of their cattle. And Esau dwelt in a mountain land of Seir. Esau is Edom.
Okay, let's stop there. So here we had discussed, I remember us discussing it. Yeah, the land can't support so many people living in one area, and it can't support the livestock. And so they're going to, so Esau is going to settle in the hill country of Seir. So then it goes into further discussion. If you will, go ahead, David, verse 9.
Okay, verse 9, here we are. And these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites, in the mountain land of Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Adah, the wife of Esau; Ruel, the son of Basemath, the wife of Esau. And the sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, and Gatam, and Kenaz. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bore to Eliphaz Amalek. These are the sons of Adah, Esau's wife.
Okay, but can we stop at this point and then come back to the reading? Anything that anyone wants to bring up with regard to some of these people?
Pastor Bruce.
Pastor Bruce, yes, please.
First of all, I found it very interesting as we go through this that Esau is the one that moved. I thought that was a very interesting thing. He could have said, I've been here for a long time, you move. He didn't. I thought that was a very interesting thing just to bring up. And we can all speculate all kinds of things and spend another hour talking about why that might be, but I don't want to do that. We've already done a lot of speculation here, but I just thought it was interesting that, look, this is my lifelong home. You go somewhere else, but he went somewhere else. I found that to be providential, I guess, if you will. That's how I'd look at it. But when you get to Timnah, all these other things are very interesting, but when you get to this Timnah person, this is where I find it to be very, very unique when it comes to some things. And I actually did some Talmud study. Mary, I did some Talmud study. Just so you'll know. I did. I just found it to be interesting because I thought this is such a unique thing in Judaism and it needs to be spent some time on. I think this is something that you said gets skipped over, but I think we really need to spend some time on this because technically speaking, in this particular thing, this concubine, you know, what I'm reading here is the long-standing rabbinical tradition used words here to make a point, whose lesson remains as significant today as when it was first made. According to the Jewish tradition, Timnah had been attracted to the beliefs of the patriarchs, but all three, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, discouraged her from converting. I don't know that to be true from Torah, but that's what the rabbis the people are saying in the Talmud and the rabbinic sources. At this point, she became a concubine and gave birth to Amalek. And of course, we know then from history, Amalek became Israel's greatest enemy. And so you're looking at all these things from Exodus and Deuteronomy coming back in, those kinds of things. And Rashi actually concluded the patriarchs badly erred in distancing her and should have encouraged her conversion. I found that to be very interesting. And the other thing they go on to say is that it kind of ended up being a tradition to not encouraging conversion into all of, I guess we'll have to say Judaism, even though I'd like to say Israeli thought in some ways, based on our previous discussion, that it's not just Judah, it's all Israel through Jacob. That encouraging conversion was not done. But when you look at Isaiah, do you say Isaiah or Isaiah?
Isaiah.
Which one?
Isaiah.
You say Shayahu.
Okay, thank you. Towards the end of that book, it says that Israel will be a light to the nations. And why would not people encourage conversion to Judaism or to the Israeli way of thinking about God if we're to be a light to the nations? And so I just found that to be I did a lot more study on this, thinking this is where we might be. And I wasn't sure exactly because I missed last week. I thought you could have been past it. And I missed it because I didn't come last week. So I was thinking, oh, good, you're still here, because I'd done a lot of thought on that.
Okay.
But I just found it to be very, very interesting, into being more receptive, into having people look at carefully Torah, moral rules, 10 commandments, 7 laws of Noah. All those things are to me are still important today. And that's why I guess why I'm here. So thank you.
Okay. I'll leave that. As usual, I will open it up for discussion. What you bring up, it's very important. Ricky, yes.
For my basic, my classic chart here. First of all, Esau had 5 wives and the concubine. And let's see, his wives were Hittite, Hivite, I never even heard of them. Hethite, well, that's another Hittite. And then the Timnah, as Bruce mentioned, Amalekites. So he's very cosmopolitan. I mean, he's all over the place. Whereas on the right-hand side of the chart, which is the Jewish side of the chart, they stay pretty much to their own bloodline. Let's get back to the conversation.
Okay, good point. Good point. Stu?
In answer to the question about, Pastor Bruce, in answer to your question or open-ended comment about conversion and why it wasn't encouraged, well, I think in ancient times, the reason might have been, I mean, this is speculation, that they did not encourage a lot of conversion because it confused the bloodline and for inheritance purposes or who would carry on the lineage. But in modern times, there was a very different reason that Jews did not encourage conversion. And that was because they had been forced to convert in many other cultures. And they did not want anybody to come to Judaism under coercion. It had to be the free will. And that is why in the ceremony, I accompanied a Christian couple to a conversion ceremony in Los Angeles. And I was in tears the whole time. I couldn't stop crying. It was the most moving thing I've ever experienced, including the baths that they go through to cleanse themselves. But one of the things I noticed right away was the rabbi asks 3 times or discourages 3 times not to convert, because they want to be sure that it is free will, that you come of your own free will and out of love, not because you feel that you have to. And that's the big modern explanation, I think.
Okay, thank you. And yes, okay, Ricky, then Rabbi Mary.
Ricky, one of
Well, the issue
about
the issue of conversion.
Mary, he called on me.
First Ricky, then Mary.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. It's all right.
I'm taking a trail up the mountain. Here's that mountain again. And you might be taking another trail up the mountain. If I try to convince you to come over to my trail, you might get lost. It's better that we meet at the top. So you
good. That's a great explanation. Excellent. Very good. Rabbi Mary.
Well, the issue of conversion and using that word is a very, very problematic. And it depends who are we talking about. In Israel, for example, religion is in the hands of the Orthodox. And the Ministry of Interior is the one that holds religion. And usually it was in the hands of religious people. So if you wanted to convert, you have to go through this place. And it has been a horrible experience, because they suspect that you want to convert because you want to marry a Jewish woman, and et cetera, whatever. So many people have gone abroad to go through reform or conservative, and some are recognized by the Orthodox or not. The word, Bruce, that we have in the Torah is ger. Ger is someone that that was not born in that place, but it has almost the same rights that someone that was born in the same place. And I must say that the issue of later on assimilation was an issue, even in modern Judaism, because by assimilation, you start losing the members of the tribe. They used to say, I was born in Argentina, and when I went to Argentina 45 years ago, 35 years after, there were so few Jews. The synagogues were empty, and there was a lot of assimilation. Now, 2 of my kids married non-Jews. They have a tree in Christmas, they eat latkes, but they have, I don't know how long they're going to hold to Judaism in that case. I don't know how many of them, their kids are going to have bar bat mitzvah. I don't know. So that's a kind of disappearing. And I think that for the Orthodox, bringing people from outside might, as you say, in this case, I'm going to use it, I hate it, to dilute the blood and the lineage and so forth. And you're right, our job is to bring light to the non-Jews we call goyim, other arms. And I told you, my Rabbi Marsha Prager said to join the tribe, not to convert, but to join the tribe. And in that, it doesn't say, well, at the moment that you join the tribe, then you are not anymore Christian or Muslim or whatever you're coming from. It's not written regarding that. And I'm sure that the Orthodox ask for that.
Okay.
It's a difficult question to answer. And there is a difference when we talk about Talmud, Torah, and today.
Thank you, Rabbi. Michael, you've had your hand up for a while.
Okay, yeah, I just want to say that what is being spoken about now is why Jews do not proselytize.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes,
Good point.
yes,
Good point.
yes.
Well,
Yeah,
what I,
yeah, yeah.
okay. One of the things that we read, and I want to point out from another source. My source is again Sarna, because the reason I do that is it's very hard to find one explanation of things in one book, and that's why I'm using it. And so one of the things that we have just read is that Esau decides to pick up and move. But the Torah is very explicit that Esau is moving for social and economic factors. This also dovetails into what Pastor Bruce was talking about. And I forget it may have been someone else that mentioned the Hittites and all these other groups that are being mentioned. When you do this, you're marrying into other groups or groups marrying into you. It's also a socioeconomic reason, and also to keep the peace. Okay. One of the, David, I'll get to you. Let me just finish my train of thought here. One of the things that I think that this is incorporated in Torah is to separate out the difference between a spiritual mission and a socioeconomic mission. Okay, and Esau has, right from the get-go, is described as somebody who is more socioeconomic. He's the hunter. He wants to own the land. He's granted the land. He's granted all these things, but the spiritual aspect is being maintained by Jacob, and we're going to see how that line goes on. This is for our story, as we have discussed. Yes, David.
Yeah, thank you, Marty. And that was a very interesting comment you just made. I want to add a little bit to what Rabbi Miri just said earlier about the timelessness of what we are discussing, that the unusual thing about our Torah is that it is timeless. Dr. Hertz's edition, which is the one I use, and back to what I quoted in verse 10, in rabbinic legend, Eliphaz is the worthiest of Esau's descendants. He was trained to pious living under the eyes of Isaac. The Lord has even endowed him with the spirit of prophecy. And now this is where the timelessness part comes in. He was none other than Eliphaz, the friend of Job, which puts us way, way forward in the thing. And I just think that really confirms what Rabbi Miri was saying. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Very, very good. So I will not go mention that, but I want to mention something about Amalek.
Yeah.
Because we keep coming up with the Amalekites are going to constantly come up and be a nagging problem for the Israelites. And it finally comes to a head. But if you go, the first encounter with the Amalekites in the book of Exodus is that the Amalekites are constantly attacking the Israelites as they leave, as they depart from the region around the Reed Sea. And so, we know about the story in Exodus with Moses raising his staff and lowering his staff in the battle wages one way or the other. And Midrash says that those around Moses had to keep his arm up so that the Jews, the Israelites, would be successful in this battle. Okay. In Deuteronomy, it extends the discussion a little further, because they were attacking. In Deuteronomy, it says they were attacking from the rear, always from the rear, picking off the groups of people that were the weakest in trying to keep up with everything, with the march. Well, again, Midrash, okay? Amalek, a descendant from Esau, and the subsequent Amalekites. Remember the story of the birth of Jacob and Esau. And so there's Midrash saying that this is their attempt to prevent it, to reverse the situation and try to hit at the heel or the rear of the Israelites, trying to prevent them from moving forward. So there's Midrash here, and I wanted to bring this out. Also, there is a week before Purim, there is another book that is read, Zachor, if I'm saying it correctly. And it's the Shabbat. Excuse me?
It's not Zachor. It's a book you're talking about?
Yes, before reading the book of Esther.
I think that we're talking about Zechariah.
Okay.
Zachariah?
Yes, yes.
Am I right?
Zachor is taken from those of you who know Hebrew. What does Zachor mean? Remember. Because it's in Deuteronomy, and it's in one of the commandments. Yes.
And remember in one word, Zachor. Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
And here we go, and we're talking is that we're commanded. Deuteronomy 25, verses 17 to 19, this is all discussed. And we're commanded to remember the evil of Amalek. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it comes, and 1 week later in Purim, when we have Purim and we read the book of Esther, King Ahasuerus says, oh my goodness, they defeated Amalek. And so you see how this is going to come up again and again. So this is probably another reason a name is added into the Torah, because it gives you an idea of another thread, as I always call them, or as other people have called it, strings. But another thread that is going to be picked up again and again in Torah and subsequent books in the Tanakh. So yes, Pastor Bruce.
I think that's kind of somewhat what I was getting at in my comments earlier.
Yes.
But you said it much better than I did. And when I was quoting some of these things from the Talmud, I used the word conversion, and that kind of got another thing going in our discussion. But I wanted to say, I understand the Torah doesn't require everyone to become Israeli or to become Jewish. That's not the thought. But I think the desire of Jewish people, as well as I will speak on behalf of Christian people, is that people would come to believe in the God of Torah and all the things that it stands for that are good. And I think that's the thing that I think maybe you're not converting anyone per se, but you're sharing the light of the commandments. You're sharing the light of all the things that are good, so that those things then can be said yes or no by someone else, and they can then take it upon themselves to say yes or no to those things. And I think that that's where, you know, I think that that maybe is more what I was trying to say, but maybe didn't say it in the way that, I mean, I use the word conversion because they use the word conversion. So I was like, I mean, I was not using that word. I was quoting the word from some of these other things, but, you know, I think that that's really, I think that's really true about this idea with Timnah, as we go back to the actual passage of scripture, is that, you know, maybe it should have just been more of a, hey, this is the light, this is the way, this is what is taught. And can you know, people can sign off on anything and put a check mark by it. But that's not the point. That's not the point of anything. It's the point of understanding and living out. It's not a check mark. It's an understanding and a living out of what we do understand for the good of all people, all mankind. All those things is all a part of who we should be as people of faith in the one true living God. That's how I look at this passage. But it seemed like there was a little bit of a warning in here somewhere. And you brought that out, Marty, in the idea is that, you know, there's always something that's coming upon us, and how do we deal with it? And anyway, I just wanted to kind of go back to that again and just kind of say it's not about conversion. It's about shining the light so that other people will believe and receive it. That's, yeah.
Okay. Yes, Rabbi Mary.
That's why, Pastor Bruce, what I was saying, that let's say that instead of conversion, we will say, not join, adopting. Because when you adopt, you really have to do. You cannot just say, oh, I believe in your God now. Yeah, okay, and they are asked, what do you do? Because they have to prepare themselves today. In the past wasn't. You have to prepare yourself for that meeting with these rabbi deans, and they are going to ask you. So you have to say, well, I keep kosher, I have candles on Shabbat, I don't work on Shabbat, etc., etc. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not just I am and that's it. It is adopting what you do, and I'm going to do it, and I'm doing. And I'm doing that because I love, I believe in one God, but I also adopt all what you do. Every religion has rituals, and they are different. They are very similar, but they are different. And are you going to have our rituals?
Good point. Good point. Well, thank you. Yes, Michael.
You know, listening, I was just going to throw this out, and maybe this could be another discussion, Marty, but I'll just ask this. You know, all these names, when did they all come about, and in what order did they come about? Jews, Jewish, Israelis, Israelites, Hebrews?
Take your pick. Take your pick, because some of it is already mentioned. The Israelites, the followers of Israel, who is Jacob. Okay, and you can point to that, as I think it was Rabbi Mary pointed out a few weeks ago, that Jews were not thought of as Jews at that time until those people who came from the tribe of Judah. Okay, and then it becomes sort of a mixed bag, because then it becomes used against them. Okay, we all know about the time of Hitler, but in other groups too, oh, those Jews, and they had to migrate from country to country. Okay, because of all of the pogroms and like that, but it was used as a very derogatory term. And so you say Hebrew.
That's the word, yeah.
There are some sources that say that Hebrew was a derogatory term used by the Egyptians. Okay, there are others who say, oh, Hebrew was a language that was spoken at that time. But that you have Proto-Hebrew and you have Hebrew, the written Hebrew, and then you have a more modern form of Hebrew. And yes, and then you have the argument, Mary, I'll get to you in a second. Then you have the argument, what is a Jew? Is it is a Jew a member of a race? Is it someone who's a member of a religion? And it's been used in different fashions. People who wanted to speak against us said, oh, they're a race of people, and we turned it into a racial discussion. So we've experienced that. And is it a civilization? Is it a culture? And what is, so you may remember the book. I remember the cover was yellow. And it discusses all of this years and years ago. But it's an ongoing discussion that we can have. That would make a great discussion that Michael, that you brought up, that could be when Rabbi Roman could offer a class on that, because there's so many aspects to what you brought up.
Well,
oh, okay, after Mary, after Rabbi Mary.
No, go ahead.
She said you.
No, I just had a comment. When my father was sworn into the State Department and then became a diplomat, we were issued passports, and mine said my name and it said Hebrew on the passport.
Yeah.
So did my father's and mother's.
And my father too.
I thought that was interesting. I don't know if they still list they don't still list your religion on your passport in the United States.
No.
Okay.
But they have ethnicity.
Okay. Rabbi Mary, then Gail.
Yes.
No, Gail first.
Okay.
I think the book that you're talking about is Why the Jews by Dennis Prager.
Yes. Okay. That. Thank you. Okay, Rabbi Mary, you're on.
Okay, these are other names that we use. And in Israel, which let's say that that's the center of who we are. It's Am Israel, the nation of Israel, Am Israel. And you might know the song, Am Israel Chai, Am Israel Chai. So we have Am Israel. Then we have Bnei Israel, the children of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
In Israel, no one is going to talk about the Yehudim or that live in Israel. They will talk about a Yehudim in America, a Yehudim in Russia. And it's problematic. And I want to offer you what, again, my Rabbi Marsha said so logically. She said, when we talk, you see my word, we are we. We were in Egypt. We walked in the desert. We celebrate Purim. And first of all, in Sinai, it says, just behave as if all of us, this generation and the future generation, were here. We were there. Now think about how we say, Do we say the Americans put the Black people as slaves? We don't. Do we say the Americans put the Japanese in concentration camps? Do we say the Americans have a lot of COVID-19? No, we don't. What we say is we, because we incorporate ourselves into that community. And according to Marcia, she says, this is how we need to talk, because that's how everyone in a community speaks. They include themselves and they don't talk about saying, oh, I didn't have slaves, it was my father. No, we Americans have slaves. We Americans are suffering from COVID. We don't say the Americans are doing that. The Americans were in Vietnam. So the same thing about Judaism. We are. And I keep emphasizing this, and I have not convinced too many people to switch, but I offer you an idea.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Ricky.
Real quickie, the 12-step programs are all based on we. We and we were powerless over. We, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves. They're all we's. There's no I's in AA, Al-Anon, or any of the 12-step programs. Always we, the community.
Good point.
Is there they? Do you say they? They should do this. They should do that.
We should do this.
It's about us.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, Pastor Bruce.
We the people.
That's correct.
Exactly.
That is correct.
Exactly. That's the definition of who we are. We include ourselves for good and for bad.
One of the things that I was thinking, you brought it to the fore, Pastor Bruce. Any group that attempts we never are completely successful, but any group that attempts to be all inclusive. Sue and I wrote, we were watching a documentary about Sacagawea. I'm butchering her name as well, but and in it was the Lewis and Clark expedition, of course, and in it, Clark is leading a vote as to what they are going to do, and it includes not just the troops from the United States under Jefferson. He includes in the vote Sacagawea and her husband, who is French. And so it's fascinating that because they were part of the group, they were included. Mm-hmm. And that was following the example set in the Constitution, as you mentioned. So you see how the influence of the words is very, very important. You take them to heart and you do them. I forget Mary, I think you mentioned that. That's part of any conversion process. You have to set the example. You show, and that's the light. That's the light you show by setting the example. It's not it's what you do. It's not just saying it, it's doing it. So other people can see. I wrote an essay, Gail knows some of the things that I've written. And one of the things about light, which was mentioned, spiritually, if we speak about light coming from God, you can share the light, yes, and that, as you pointed out. But when you reflect it back to the source, you're saying, here I am too. I received the message. By reflecting it back, you are saying back to God that you receive the message, you understand it, and what you need to do, and you go and reflect it to other individuals. So I think that it's an interesting concept about light and the actions we do, and that's all I'm going to say about it. Yes, Pastor Bruce, and then Michael.
As soon as you said that, I thought of Isaiah chapter 6, where he says to the Lord, "Here I am, send me."
Yes. I have a shirt. I will wear that at some time. Hineni, and on the other, it has it in Hebrew. Yes. Michael.
Speaking about light, that's very interesting to me too. Some years ago, when I first joined the temple, and I think, Marty, you're going to remember this, I noticed that there were two independent lighting systems in the sanctuary of the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And one is the fluorescent lights, which is utility lights. The other is incandescent lighting, which creates a beautiful glow in that temple, especially at night when it's dark. And I always thought that a Friday night service, especially at night, should be given with that beautiful glow, golden glow. And some people say, well, it's too dark. It's not too dark. And the reason it's not too dark is because the human eye, for so many years, was used to those fluorescent lights. Mm-hmm. That's the reason. But to give it a chance, and the service will become even more spiritual. And that's
it sets a mood. Yes,
it sets an absolutely fantastic mood.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Gail, I'm going to let you go first, and then Ricky, only because Gail hasn't said very much.
I just wanted to say I just watched a DVD, and it's called The Three Cantors of New York, and it's filmed at the Portuguese synagogue in Holland, the Netherlands, whatever, yeah. And it's all lit with something like 1,000 candles.
Yes.
Oh, it's a nice. Very, I think the synagogue's 400 years old or something.
It's gorgeous, gorgeous.
Absolutely stunning. But this candlelight and this singing, talk about setting a mood. It's just
yes.
amazing.
I agree. I agree. We've had similar experiences with that. Yes. Ricky.
Always talk about light. There's again from the Christian Bible somewhere is don't put a bushel over the light, to block the light. Yeah, Pastor Bruce is shaking his head, so I'm remembering that correctly. Because there's reflecting the light, but there's also hiding the light, covering the light. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Good point. Good point. On that note, okay, Suzanne, you're going to have the last word because we're running over.
Oh, it's just real quick. I don't exactly remember the name of the song, but when Pastor Bruce mentioned Isaiah 6, "Here I am, Lord," there is a beautiful song. It may even be the title. I don't know. Is it "Here I Am, Lord"? Is that the name of the song?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Excellent. Very good.
Yeah, the song is Hineni.
Okay, there you go. Ruth Ann, any announcements, and then we can
well, just
adjourn.
Kind of to piggyback on Torah studies, if Rabbi Roman is up to it, this Thursday on the 4th, and it'll come out the invitation tomorrow. He's giving a class on the 10 Commandments.
Oh,
Tuesday.
Yes.
10 o'clock, like I said, assuming he's up to it. He did not join us today because he went back to bed. He feels like he has a very bad cold, and so he's resting.
Good.
And then Friday service, okay, will be via Zoom because don't want him back in the temple. He said he's quarantining up through Thursday, but I'm making it 2 weeks before he can come into the temple.
No, I understand. You're doing the right thing.
It will be via Zoom. And for those people who do not like Zoom, the email just went out because I just got it from Jane.
Okay.
I wrote it 2 o'clock this morning, so if it doesn't make complete sense, that's why. But anyhow, everybody is going to be asked to mute at the beginning of the service and stay muted till the end of the service. And anybody who unmutes will be kicked out, and Big Brother can do it.
Okay. No, it's Big Mama.
Big Mama, whatever. I will kick them out, and they will not be able to rejoin. So everybody must stay muted for the entire service. At the end of the service, we can gab, but it's very distracting when people start to sing and you can't hear the rabbi. So everybody's going to have to stay muted. And hopefully after this, we'll be able to get back into the temple. I can't believe I haven't been there in 2 weeks. But Stacy wants paid, and Monday is payday, so I got to go to the temple. But we're managing, we're managing. We'll get back to somewhat normal eventually. It's going to be a while.
David, I have to ask you, what is the date that you're going to be doing a commentary on on the Parsha of the week?
I can't remember. I thought it was the 11th, but
that's what I thought.
Whenever it is, that's when I'll
it's the
be doing it.
second Monday of the month.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all excited about that. So I'll see you then.
Okay, you bet. We look forward to that.
Is that going to be at 10 o'clock?
That's at 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
Monday the 8th.
Well, thank you, everyone. This was another lively session, and we got far. For us, we got very far. Okay, Joanne, I don't know if you're waving, Joanne, if you wanted to say something.
I just wanted to say thank you for answering my question. It took 2 hours.
You're lucky it only took 2 hours.
That was an easy answer.
Everybody have a good week.
Okay,
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.